Namaste and welcome to the Vedanta Society of Greater Houston and our Sunday morning service for January 3rd. Om Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityormamritam Gamaya Aviravirmaedhi Rudrayatte Dakshinam Mukham Tena Mam Pahi Nityam Tena Mam Pahi Nityam. Lead us from the unreal to the real. Lead us from darkness unto light. Lead us from death to immortality. Reach us through and through ourself, O Lord, and protect us evermore from ignorance by thy sweet, compassionate face. Om Vishnurva Tripurantako Bhavatu Va Brahma Surendrotha Bhanurva Shashalakshanota Bhagavan Buddhota Siddhota Va Ragadvesha Visharti Moharahita Sattvanukampodyato Yasarvai Saha Samskrito Gunaganais Tasmai Namah Sarvada. The Supreme Reality and its messengers are known by various names in various traditions. But as for me, I offer my worship always to the one going by any name and belonging to any tradition, who is free from attachment and hatred, free from worldliness and delusion, who is filled with compassion towards all living beings, and who is possessed of all noble virtues. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat. Om peace, peace, peace be unto us all. So first, Happy New Year to everyone. In honor of the new year, I always like to speak at the beginning of the year on something to do with new beginnings. And so today I've given the title of Renewal to the talk, but let me add a little more to it. Renewal, let the dead bury their dead. We will come to that statement, which is a statement of Jesus in the course of the talk. But renewal, let the dead bury their dead. That is the need for renewal and how we come about it. So first, of course, it being the new year, it's a time of renewal. It's a time when we think about time, a time when we are conscious of time, a time when the passage of time is something we pay more attention to. And so you find in cultures around the world, all cultures that had calendars, and that is most cultures, all but the most technologically primitive cultures had calendars, that the new year is always celebrated as a time of new beginning. In fact, in cultures around the world, older cultures around the world, not modern cultures, modern scientific cultures, but older cultures around the world, time itself was seen as sacred. And that's certainly so in the Hindu world. But it wasn't just in the Hindu world. In the Mayan world and the Aztec world of the Americas, and in some other cultures as well, time itself was seen as sacred. And the units of time were seen as sacred. And so you find that the calendar itself had a sacredness to it. The year was sacred. The markings of the year were sacred. Each period of the year had a special association, special meanings. So we have sacred associations with the units of time. In fact, the very association of the names of the days of the week, which are similar, which are basically the same in Europe and in India. Monday, the day of the Sunday being the day of the sun, Ravivar in Hindi, and Monday, the day of the moon, and Sombar, etc. So you find the days of the week have astronomical associations, astrological associations, and sacred associations. In India, of course, every day of the week was special to some deity or another. And so at Bellarmat, in our main monastery, our headquarters outside of Calcutta, on the different days of the week, they will dress the image of Sri Ramakrishna in a different colored cloth according to the sacredness of that day. So like on a Sunday, which is sacred to the sun, he'll often be dressed in red and so forth. On the Monday, the Sombar, the moon day, he'll be dressed in white. And also because Monday is associated with Shiva, and so the color white being sacred to Shiva. So you find, again, the sacredness of time, sacredness of the units of time. And one thing that it's easy to forget for us Westerners as well as people outside of the West, that at one time the West also had a deeply sacred culture. It was really beginning with the Renaissance, the awakening of Europe to the Greek and Roman classics, which began to awaken the mind out of the mythological mind. And then especially with the coming of Enlightenment, the period called the Enlightenment, which is considered the full awakening of the European mind out of its mythological past. But with the awakening of the mind, the intellectual mind, the inquisitive mind, the doubting mind, that was a wonderful event in Western history, very, very important. But it also meant the coming out of the sacred and the beginning of the secularizing of everything. Before the Enlightenment and before the late Renaissance, in fact, everyone just accepted that God was. They accepted the reality of God. Even the most free-thinking person in Europe assumed the existence of God. It wasn't possible to think in terms of a universe without God. And so as the Western mind began to become more inquisitive and more free-thinking, then that began to disappear. People began to doubt the existence of God. But before that time, in Western civilization, as in Indian civilization, everything in life had some sacred association. And so again, with time, we find that the seasons have their sacred associations, East and West, the yearly festivals, the path of the life of Christ, and there are other levels also from what Christians call the Old Testament, or Jews, the Bible of the Jews, the Torah. There's another layer of historical cycles, but every year in the Christian world followed the life of Christ. And so with Christmas near the beginning of the year, the birth of Christ, and then leading on to Easter through Lent, and then to Easter, and then the Pentecost, and so forth. So the year itself had a sacred cycle, which is still celebrated in monasteries, at least the contemplative monasteries, and in some conservative Christian communities. By conservative, I don't mean politically conservative, but religiously conservative. So and then the rites of passage that a person passes through in their life, from conception in some cultures through birth, education, marriage, retirement, death, etc. There are various rites of passage which are celebrated, which are rites of time. And then the passage of the year. So the yearly festivals which are celebrated in cultures around the world. All of these have originally some sort of religious, some sort of sacred association, even if in the modern world we have moved more into a secularization where the sacred is pushed aside and the event is celebrated in a more secular way. But the roots of these festivals were all religious. So, with the New Year, that is a very special time among these various moments of celebration in the life of a society. The New Year begins the cycle of a whole year over again. And again, there are other festivals along the way through the year, but the New Year is a very special time where there's a break with the past year and the beginning of a new cycle of time. And so you find all over the world that the New Year is celebrated. And with the New Year, there are two basic psychological movements with the coming of the new year. One of those is looking back and taking stock of the past. And so many of you know, most of you know, perhaps all of you know the Scottish song that Old Lang Syne, for old time's sake, or actually old time's sake. And for Old Lang Syne, which is a line in the song, in the refrain, that means for old time's sake. So the idea was that should old acquaintance be forgot and never brought to mind? The question is raised, should old acquaintance be forgot and never brought to mind? Well, no, the idea of the song is that we should remember the past and should value the past. So with the coming of the new year, one movement is looking to the past and assessing what has happened. What have we gained? What have we lost? What have been the changes that we have experienced during the year? What can we learn from what has gone on? One of the reasons that we repeat the same experiences over and over, and by that I mean experiences we don't want to have. We go through the same mistakes, make the same errors of judgment, make the same mistakes of habit, etc., because we don't learn from the past. And so at the start of the new year, again, one thing is to look to the past and see what it is that we need to learn. What has happened? What can I learn from it? The good and the bad, both. What can I learn? And the Holy Mother used to say that in the evening one should think over the day and think of how one has spent it and see how one can do better. Again, that's not to beat oneself up. That's not to give oneself a sense of inadequacy. That's a problem, especially in the West. Not that it doesn't happen in the East also, but it's especially prevalent in the West, where there has been an overemphasis on guilt, an overemphasis on sin and on guilt. And so there's a psychological tendency in the West to, as we say in common parlance, to beat oneself up. That is, to beat oneself up over the things that one finds in oneself that one doesn't like, the things one has done. So no, the purpose of looking back is not to beat oneself up. It's not to make one feel inadequate. It's not to make one feel guilty. I'll come to the topic of guilt later in the talk, come back to that. But it's not to make one feel guilty. It's to learn so that we can move forward. Is to look objectively. One of the things we have to learn in spiritual life is how to look at ourselves objectively, so that I can see the flaws, I can see the faults, and not be overcome by guilt. Just see them clinically, as a doctor looks at a patient and sees what's wrong with the patient. That's why it's a tradition in medical science that a doctor not treat his or her own family, because you can't be objective. If you're a mother and a pediatrician and you're treating your own child who has some serious malady, you can't be objective. You can't look at the situation objectively. So you need someone outside the family to be your family physician, even if you yourself are a doctor. so that the physician can look clinically and see objectively, because they have nothing involved in the situation. They can look objectively and see what's there. So we have to learn to do that with ourselves, have to learn to be clinically objective, and not feel overly sensitive about ourselves as we look at ourselves. Just look and see what's there. And again, as Holy Mother said, we should assess ourselves every day and see how we've spent the day and how we can do better. Not in detail, not going over and over and overthinking things, just a quick glance at the general tenor of the day, not trying to pick. And I say this because this became a great problem in Christianity I forget, it started around the 17th century forward. It became one of the main practices in Christian monasticism, the examination of conscience. And so one was supposed to see all of the flaws within oneself, and one was to go into minute detail, picking at all of one's faults. That's a terrible thing. So that's not what I'm talking about either. That came in the Counter-Reformation in Roman Catholicism. The Reformation, the time of Luther, when Luther rebelled against the church authority and wanted to reform the church, and ended up by leaving the church and starting his own movement, the seed of the Protestant movement. And so the church, the Roman Catholic Church, reacted against the Reformation by the Counter-Reformation. And part of that reaction was to be suspicious of mysticism, which was a foolish movement within the Roman Catholic Church. Understandable, but foolish, wrong-headed. The reason why they turned against mysticism was that they felt that Luther turned against the church because he became too free-thinking. And so mystics tend to be people who claim to have experience of God and soul and divine things, and so they tend to be too independent. So there was a reaction against mysticism. And so instead of contemplative practice, they began to focus on the examination of conscience. So that's not what I'm talking about, the minute examination of conscience. Just to look in general at one's self, and to see how the day in general has passed and how can I do better tomorrow. So again, that's the looking back. But the other movement is renewal. So as I said, there are two movements in the celebration of the new year. One is the looking back and learning from the past. The other is renewal, to try to start again, to have a fresh start. A time when we make resolutions, a time when we look to new beginnings, and that's the reason why we make New Year's resolutions, because we want to have a new beginning. I want to get out of the old. We want to let go of the burden of the past. The past is a treasure house of experience, but it also is a tremendous weight that keeps us from moving forward. And so with the coming of a new year, when we try to look forward, we try to grow, we try to improve ourselves, our habits, our way of life, our thinking, etc., then it's a time to shed the weight of the past. Learn from the past, but don't keep the weight of the past preventing us from going forward. So there's a beautiful name of Shiva, one of the ancient Vedic names of Shiva, very significant, one of the 5 special names of Shiva. Shiva has many names, but there are 5 which are pointed to as central to the being of Shiva, and one of those is Sadyojata. I refer to that from time to time in lectures because of its importance, the importance of the idea. Sadyojata means he who is born again, who is born anew every moment. He who every moment is born anew. And that's what we want. The coming of the new year is a time, because it's a time that brings new beginnings to our consciousness makes us aware of it, then at the new year, we're especially aware of it. But actually, what we want to do is to take birth anew every moment, to feel fresh every moment. And I'm not speaking about physical freshness or mental freshness, especially, but with a fresh new self-image. That again, we're not stained by the past. So learning to renew ourselves every moment. But at the time of the new year, that's a special time of renewal for us. So there's a saying of Jesus, which I quoted at the very beginning of this talk: let the dead bury their dead. So let me give a little context and then read from the Bible the context in which it comes. So first of all, Jesus had healed sick people at the time of this saying. He had just healed the sick, and so there were huge crowds that gathered around to see. And so Jesus, unlike what the image that we often get, Jesus actually, when he healed people, he didn't do it for public show. The so-called miracles performed by Jesus, they were never for public demonstration. In fact, when he healed people, he often said, don't tell this to anyone, because he knew that it would bring the wrong type of attention. And so he had, at this moment in his life, he had healed some people, and great crowds gathered around hearing about his healing power. And so he told his disciples, let us go apart. So then the narration continues, and this is the narration from Matthew chapter 8. Then a certain scribe came and said to him, to Jesus, Teacher, I will follow you wherever you go. And Jesus said to him, foxes have holes and birds of the air have their nests, but the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head. That's a very famous statement that we've all heard, a very famous statement which shows that the spirit of Jesus was the spirit of a sannyasi. As Swami Vivekananda says in his Song of the Sannyasin, the grass thy bed, the sky thy roof, the grass thy bed, and food what chance might bring, judge not. So here he says, foxes have holes and birds of air have their nests, but the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head. So here this young man, the scribe, had come to him and said, Teacher, I will follow you wherever you go. And so Jesus gives him this warning, that don't think that if you follow me, you're coming to some comfortable place, because I have no place to call my own. I don't have any place even that I can call, this is my place to lay my head at night. And nothing belongs to me. I'm a wanderer without possession. And so then the narration continues. Then another of his disciples said to him, so first the scribe comes to him, who's not a disciple, but now a disciple said to him, Lord, let me go and bury my father. But Jesus said to him, follow me and let the dead bury their dead. So this disciple, his father had just died, obviously. And so he tells Jesus, Jesus, I'm coming, but let me first go and bury my father. And Jesus says, let the dead bury their dead. Follow thou me. That's a terrible statement, a true statement, a good statement, but a terrible statement. How Jesus has been turned into what he has been turned into by much of the Christian world is a great mystery, because if you read the life of Jesus, it's a story of tremendous renunciation, a story of uncompromising renunciation and uncompromising spirituality. And so that you see here, follow thou me and let the dead bury their dead. So what does that mean? Let the dead bury their dead. That means that the ordinary average people in society, they are as good as dead. They're as good as dead. They're just dead men walking. The average person is more dead than alive. And so let them bury their dead. They're already dead. Let them bury their dead. Let the dead take care of the dead. But follow thou me. So again, that's an extreme statement. Telling a man whose father has just died, forget about that. Let the dead bury their dead. You forget about that. You come with me. So I can't say that to someone. If someone came to me, no matter how important what I had to do was, and said, "My father just died," I would say, "Yes, go take care of him." That would be the only human and right thing and good thing for someone like me to say. But someone like Jesus can say this. Someone like Jesus, someone like Ramakrishna, someone like Buddha, they can say this because they have the power to lift the person up. By following them, then we get everything. And as it's believed in the Hindu tradition, and as I believe literally, a person who attains to spirituality in this life, his family, even if he's a sannyasi and has given up the home, but his purvashram family, that is his pre-monastic family, they are blessed for 7 generations backwards and 7 generations forward. And so the best service one can give to one's family is to become spiritual, no matter what the sacrifice, no matter what the cost. And to a person like Jesus, he could say, "Let the dead bury their dead." Just as Sri Krishna speaks uncompromising truths to Arjuna in the Gita, the teachings that Sri Krishna gives in the Gita to Arjuna, if we really read them as this is God speaking to me who am on the battlefield ready to kill my ancestors, my relatives, it's terrible advice that Sri Krishna gives. We can sympathize with Arjuna. Arjuna was right to fall apart emotionally from a conventional standpoint. But from a spiritual standpoint, he was wrong. And that is what Sri Krishna points out. Sri Krishna's advice, really, if we really read it fresh, not, oh, we've heard the Gita since childhood and we've heard it so many times, and so we just read it again and it's just a lovely story and we know how it ends and we know how it starts and all of that, so we pass right over it. But if we really think about the situation of Arjuna, it's a terrible situation, a horrible situation. And there Sri Krishna begins by telling him horrible truths. And again, by horrible, I mean in the conventional sense, in the sense of ordinary society, not in the sense of truth. Sri Krishna teaches him truth. And so that's what Jesus is doing here. Let the dead bury their dead. Follow thou me, because I am God and I will give you salvation. And that is the greatest service, Jesus, again, speaking for Jesus, that is the greatest service that you can give to humanity. Forget the dead, let the dead go, follow thou me. So again, that's a tremendous statement. So what does that mean for us? That's in essence what we need to learn to do. Again, this being New Year's, the idea of renewal. Yes, learning from the past, but then letting the past go. And so learning to let go of the past, let go of our attachments, and to seek and to follow the truth, and to try to live up to the truth. Swami Vivekananda once said, "Don't repent. Spit if you must, but don't repent." He said that here in America, in California. Think of the power of that statement. Again, those of us who have read Swamiji for many years, we read statements like that and it just falls into a context where it's just one more statement of Swamiji. But think about the impact on a Christian audience at that time in this was in 1900 when he was in California. He says, "Spit if you must, but don't repent." That idea of not dwelling on the past and not continually going over, why did I do this? Why did I say that? Why do we do it? Why does the mind continually go over these old regrets, the things that we repent, the things that we're sorry for? Why do we do that? Because we're unconsciously trying to fix it. We're trying to find some way to live the story that many of you have seen in the movie Groundhog Day. The movie Groundhog Day, where the person dies and comes back every day, over and over again, reliving the same scene, trying to get it right. So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get things right. Something we did that we regret, and so we go over it again and again, but we don't do it. We can't fix what has already happened. So if there's something that we did that we regret, just learn what I should have done, then forget it. When you find yourself going over something again and again, catch yourself and just say, let it go, let it go, let it go. I don't need this. What do we do to ourselves by going over something again and again and again in the mind? We deepen it. We drive it deeper and deeper and deeper into the mind. That very thing which makes us miserable, we drive it deeper and deeper into the mind. So we only strengthen it. So don't allow yourselves to do that. When you find the regrets coming, look to see if there's something you need to learn, reinforce the positive thing that you should learn, and then give it up immediately. Give it up immediately. Pray to God. Ask God to help you out of this continually recycling through the same thoughts. So spit if you must, but don't repent. So what about contrition? What about feeling sorry for the things that we've done wrong? That's natural. That's natural and that's temporary. I do something wrong. I hurt someone's feelings, maybe intentionally because I'm angry, or maybe unintentionally I hurt someone's feelings, and I recognize what I did and I feel bad. That's a good thing that I feel bad. That means that I have a conscience. That means that I know the difference between what should be done and what shouldn't be done. I feel bad because I do it. That's only natural, and that shows that I have a conscience. But beyond that, then we keep going over and over and over again. No, I do something wrong. I realize what I did. I feel bad about it. And then I let go of it. We have to learn that letting go. The same with guilt. As I said before, that I would come back to the topic of guilt. Swami Prabhavananda, who founded our Hollywood Center and the branches, except for San Diego, of the Hollywood Center, he used to say that he kept in the room where he would have interviews with people. Devotees would come to talk to him, for counseling or interviews. He said he always kept a box of tissue, a box of Kleenex. He said, not for the women, but for the men who cry when they come to talk to me. And of course, the women did too, but he wanted to emphasize, don't think that that's something that women do. No, I keep it there for the men. The women, at least, they keep Kleenex in their purse, and men don't. So I keep it there for them. And he said that he found in Americans, in Westerners, including Americans, but he dealt mainly with Americans, a chronic sense of guilt, a sense that they were bad people. He said so many people came to him and said, Swami, I'm such a bad person. And Swami would say, no, you're not a bad person. You may have made some mistakes, but you're not a bad person. And they said, no, Swami, you don't know me. I'm a terrible person. And so then the Swami would say things like, well, have you robbed anybody? Have you killed anybody? Have you raped anybody? Have you abused the children, anything like that? And they say, oh, no, Swami, I'd never do anything like that. Well, then you're not a bad person. You just make mistakes like everybody makes. That's not being a bad person. And so he said that this sense of being a bad person just as part of my being, that is after 2,000 years of emphasizing that we are all born sinners. I once heard on the radio in San Diego, in the car, driving in the car, and at that period I used to turn on a station in Southern California, which was an evangelical Christian station, because I was interested in the psychology. And so there was this one program I often used to catch because it was on at a time when I was often out running errands. And so there was a Christian minister who was also a psychological counselor, and he had a call-in show. So one day, oh, no, I'm sorry, it wasn't that program. It was another program where there was a evangelical who was in Pasadena, who was broadcasting over this station. And so he said, people talk about children being so innocent. They're not innocent. They're just immature sinners. I thought, my God. if that's the view of human nature, that you can't even enjoy the innocence of children. Yes, it's true. Hinduism also says that a child, their past karma is there, their tendencies are there, they just haven't matured yet. That's true. But to have the view that a child is basically an immature sinner, that's a horrible view of humanity. What about all of the good tendencies within the person? Yes, we all bring in even the person who turns out to be one of the worst people that you've ever met, has good qualities as well. Why not recognize that? Why not look at the potential within the person? Why not look at a child and see what potential is there? But after 2,000 years of looking on people as sinners, teaching people that you can do nothing good on your own, only by God's grace can any good come from you, that you on your own will always only sin and you will always only do evil, because your nature itself is evil. So that has had a devastating effect on the psychology of people, so that people have this entrained, not inborn, but entrained sense that I'm a bad person. So no, just as with the feeling of contrition, when I do something wrong, I feel some contrition, meaning I feel some guilt. That's the experience of mental pain. When I put my hand in a fire, it hurts, so I pull my hand away quickly. And I learned that I shouldn't put my hand in fire. So when I do something wrong and I feel guilt or contrition, that is the mental equivalent, the psychological and moral equivalent, that I realize I've done something I shouldn't have done. Let me learn from it. So if I burn my hand with physical things, we learn not to do it, but we don't go on thinking about it all of the time. We don't spend the next 20 years thinking about the time I burnt my hand on a flame. No, we learn from it and we go on. But with moral things, we have this tendency to go on thinking about it, go on dwelling on it over and over and over again. So no, that we have to learn to give up. Carl Jung, the great psychologist, Swiss psychologist, he said of the 20th century, he said that in his many years of therapy, giving therapy to clients that would come to him, that he noticed that Catholics needed much less psychological counseling than the Protestants did. And he was convinced that it was because of their process of confession, their practice of confession, that they go to the confessional, they tell the priest, this is what I have done. Please give me absolution. Please forgive me for that which I have done. And then the priest pronounces a prayer over them, perhaps if it's serious enough, gives them some tapasya, some prayaschitta, that is something to do to amend for their sins, and then tells them to go and be free from sin. And so it's a way of renewing oneself. So he said that Carl Jung said that he noticed among Catholics that sense of renewal really worked. Whereas with Protestants, there wasn't that process of confession and renewal. And so there wasn't that sense of being freed from past sins. They just still hung around the neck of people, burdening them. So in the Hindu world, there's a practice of Sandhya Vandana, which not many people do anymore. Some people just repeat the Gayatri at the morning and the evening, if they do that. But that's most of what people do nowadays. But the whole Sandhya Vandana ceremony included a part where you pray that the fire in the morning consume the sun in the morning consume the sins of that one committed at night. And then the fire in the evening, the household fire into which you make offerings, consume the sins that one has done during the day. So that twice a day, you could renew your self-image. That is, you offer into the sun, offer into the fire, all of the mistakes, the errors, and so-called sins, things that you shouldn't have done, that you know you shouldn't have done, you offer them so that you can be free of them. So we need that type of self-renewal. Nowadays, when people don't do Sandhya Vandana, and most of us are not Roman Catholics, either by upbringing or by present practice, we can do the same thing through prayer. by offering everything that we are, everything that we've done, offer it to the chosen ideal, offer it to God with a prayer that let me be free. Let me realize my divine nature, that which is pure, that which is perfect. Let me go there, because only when I get there will I not make mistakes. As long as I am unaware of my divine nature, I'm going to make mistakes. I'm going to do things I know I shouldn't do. I'm going to do it because in my present experience of self, I'm fallible. But I know through conviction that my real nature is pure, perfect, ever free, beyond the realm of samsara, beyond the realm of relative existence, where such considerations have no place whatsoever. Let me get there, because there I will be free. And in the meantime, let me offer everything that I do, everything that I have, offer everything to God. If I take the good things for myself, the bad things will be attached to the good things. So let me learn to give up everything to God. If I'm devotional, then let me surrender to God over and over again. Lord, you please take my good and my bad, and leave me free. Leave me free so that I can come to you, and come freely to you without the burden of the past. And if we are on the impersonal path, the path of knowledge, the path of jnana, the path of self-inquiry, then to realize that all of this is not what I want. The body, everything to do with the body, the mind, the universe of perception, to offer all of that and to think of myself as pure consciousness, and to have this sense of pushing away everything else and remaining as pure divine consciousness. For many, that's very difficult. It's much easier to offer everything to God, thinking of myself still as an individual being, because that's my experience at present, and offering my good, bad, and everything to God. You please take care of that. Brother Lawrence, in his practice of the presence of God, he said that whenever he would do something unworthy, when he would do something that he felt bad about afterwards, then he would, instead of moping and over repenting and thinking about it and all of that, he would just go to God and say, Lord, what can I do? Without your grace, what else am I going to do? What else will I do if I don't have your grace? So you please purify me. So in that sense, letting go of things, the mudra of offering, just let it go. I have a friend who's very famous in certain circles nowadays, not that most of you would have heard of her, but Cynthia Bourgeot. She's an Episcopal priest who lives in Maine, but she travels all over the country and all over the world, very much in demand in Christian circles especially, not just in Christian circles, in Sufi circles as well, those Sufi circles that are more liberal and open to other religions. And so she has this mudra, which she has that she teaches people to just let go. Let go. She teaches people to do it with her. Just let go. When you find that you're burdened with things, she says, just have the sense, let go. I don't need this. I don't need this. We hold on to the things that cause us misery. We hold on to the rope which is keeping us tied to the shore of misery. And so let go of it. Let go of it. Be free of it. So what about responsibility? Yes, as long as we have any sense of agency, as long as I feel that I am doing anything, then karma will hold me responsible. If I do good, if I do bad, the karma is inescapable as long as I have any sense of agency. And so we can't escape responsibility. We have to learn to act properly because our karma holds us responsible, whether we like it or not. But we don't want to remain there. What we want to do is to go beyond karma. And so we try to see that everything is God's will, or we try to see that I am the self beyond the realm of karma, that karma is all things that I'm seeing. It's not me. I'm the one who is the light which illuminates everything that's happening in this body and mind and external world. I'm the light which illuminates it. I'm not that which is happening. So that's in personal path, and again on the personal path, that everything happens by the will of God. I do nothing, and I can do nothing. And so let me surrender everything that I am, everything that I do, everything that I have into the hands of God where it belongs, so that I can be free. To be free of the sense of agency is to be free of responsibility for uh, everything. That is to be truly free, truly free. We can't be free of responsibility until we give up the sense of agency, and that comes with high spiritual experience. But from this present point where we are, we try to do that. We try to do that so that we can be renewed. So let the dead bury their dead. Let those who are already dead, let them take care of the dead. Let me move towards God. Let me move towards God. So there's the corresponding idea, not said by Jesus, but a corresponding idea. Let the dead bury the dead, because behold, the future is now here. That is the future which Jesus came to bring, the future which Buddha came to bring, which Rama Krishna came to bring. The future is now here. So the goal is not to look to the future. The goal of New Year's celebration, the goal of renewal, is not to look with hope and expectation to the future. No. Swami Vivekananda said once here in America, during his first visit, he said, the highest state is hopelessness, is to be hopeless. Now that sounds strange because in modern English or American parlance, you say about somebody, "Oh, he's hopeless," meaning there's no hope for him. He's such a terrible person. There's no hope for him. So to be hopeless means that you're useless. So he didn't mean it in that sense, of course. Hopelessness is the highest state, means to live without hope and expectation, to live in the present moment. And so renewal is not about looking to the future, expecting something for the future. The goal is to be present. The goal is to be in the present, to look into the depths of our present experience. All truth, all reality, all divinity, all perfection is right here, right now. There's no point in time or space which is better than any other point. Right now is perfection. In the midst of your own experience is living perfection. It's just that we don't see it. We've fooled ourselves. We've pulled a veil over our eyes, and so we don't see that which is true. So renewal means looking into the depths of our present experience, because everything is here and now. There's nothing really to be attained. That's the essence of the Vedantic message. There's nothing to be attained because you are perfect already. It's just that we don't realize it. Just that we don't realize it. So we don't have to go anywhere else. We don't have to wait for any other time. Just to try to see it here and now, whether in a devotional way or in an impersonal way. It's only to be recognized. Now, let me also bring in another thought here, a little out of the direct line that I was going in with the renewal. But we do have to learn to accommodate failure. We have to learn to accommodate failure. And that is said over and over again in the Gita. Siddhya siddhyo samo bhutva. Becoming the same in success and failure. Over and over again, labha labho, jaya jayo. Being the same in acquisition and in loss, in victory and in defeat. Being the same in all of those conditions. We have to learn to accommodate failure, because failure is a part of life. I was just reading a beautiful article, I think it was yesterday, about learning and how learning takes place. You know that a small child learning to walk travels every day, a small child just learning to walk travels 8 football field lengths of distance. 8 football field lengths of distance every day learning to walk. And how do they learn it? By falling down again and again, and getting up and falling down, getting up and falling down, getting up and falling down. So for over months, they do that. Over months. It takes more than a year to learn to walk properly. It takes a couple of years, or I forget the exact time, but it's much more than a year it takes to learn to walk properly. The child learns to do it by just experimenting, trying different things, trying to move about. But the child who is just beginning to learn to walk at the very beginning, covering 8 football fields every day, that's a long ways. You imagine a little tiny child doing that. It doesn't seem possible, but scientists have studied and measured that is average. So failure is the way that we learn. It's through failure, through mistakes that we learn. So Swami Vivekananda said in various ways at various times, blessed are my mistakes, blessed are my failures, because I learn more from them than from my successes. And so again, that also is part of renewal. That also is part of renewal. That is coming at a different angle from what I was saying before, but the two are not contradictory. What I was saying before coming off on this direction, is that you are perfect now. Perfection is your very nature. It's here and now. We just have to recognize it. But it's through failure that we come to that. It's through failure we come to it. And so we have to lose our fear of failure. Then before I close, let me bring up the social dimension of this. I've been speaking about the individual and spiritual connection, which of course is the most important. But the social is there also, and the social dimension is something that Swami Vivekananda brought more than any world teacher, any of the Christs or Buddhas of the past. He brought the social dimension more into people's awareness. Because he saw that society, every individual lives in a social context, and the individual influences society, and the society influences the individual. That's why we have adages, popular statements of wisdom, such as every person is a product of their times, because we're all influenced by the society around us. And so looking at the present social situation, we see that on every horizon there is darkness, there is threat, there's danger, there's the impending possible gloom everywhere we look, whether it's economically or politically, health-wise with the pandemic. So yes, there are bright spots too, that I'm not denying, but we can't deny the doom and gloom. So the question comes, is there no hope with the impending climate catastrophe which may come? Again, the economic situation looks very, very dire. People try to ignore it, but the economic situation looks very dire, with a huge number of people unemployed, businesses shuttering, many of them permanently, and so many things looking very serious on the economic horizon. So is there no hope? Well, the past is already dead, and all of the terrible things we see on the horizon, that's all part of the past. The new has already been born. For those of us who are followers of Sri Ramakrishna, the Holy Mother, and Swami Vivekananda, they are the birth of the new. They are the new hope. They are the sun rising now in the spiritual firmament. They are the bright new sun which is taking birth. And so, yes, there's still the mists from the past that are all around us, all of the death and destruction. But let the dead bury their dead. For those of us who know that the new has been born and that the new is coming, then let us look to that. We don't have to worry about all of the terrible things that are going on. Yes, when we meet human suffering in front of us, let us help. Let us give a kind word. Let us help where we can. But we know better than to fall into despair and think that the whole world is falling apart and everything is going to be a disaster. No, the new dawn has already arisen. It's already realized in the coming of Sri Ramakrishna, the Holy Mother, and Swami Vivekananda. Time, history, will unpack all of that. What it is that they have brought, what it is that they have already changed in the seed form. But out of that seed which they have planted, the new growth of civilization is coming. It's just that we don't yet notice it. But the new is already here, it's already coming. So, those of us who know well enough to know that, then let us look to that. So, what does that mean for us, practically speaking? It means, of course, first of all, what I just said, that the new dawn has already come, that the future belongs to that which Sri Ramakrishna and Swami Vivekananda and Holy Mother brought. Not necessarily in their name. I'm not being religiously narrow with the idea that the Vedanta movement of Ramakrishna is going to conquer the world. No, they didn't come for name and fame. They didn't come to conquer anybody. They came to bring new life. As Sri Krishna says in the Gita, in the fourth chapter, he says, Ye yatha mam prapadyante tam tathaiva bhajamyaham. In whatever way people approach me, in that way I provide for them. And so in whatever way people come towards reality, that reality, now having come in the form of Sri Ramakrishna, once again, that reality provides for them. So not in some religiously triumphalistic sense that Ramakrishna is the future and everybody has to worship him and everyone should leave their religions and come to the Vedanta Society. No, I don't mean anything like that. But the reality is that they have brought new life to earth, and it will manifest in many ways. It will bring new life to old traditions as well. And so that is already here. The old paradigm of society, of the way that we look at the universe, that is dead. So let the dead bury their dead. That's already gone. It's already dying. That's what's dying all around us. The political institutions, the economic system, all of that is dying. It's dying all around us. So let it die. Because we don't need to hold on to it. Yes, that's what most people, the majority of the billions of people on earth will do. They'll hold on to the old, trying to grasp at it, trying to keep it from dying, trying to resuscitate it. But it's already dead. It's already dead. And so those of us who have seen the new dawn, let us look to that, because that is already bringing new life. Let the old things die. Don't get in the way of their dying, and don't stand under the old buildings that are falling down also. Get out and go towards the new. The new has already been born. So the future is already here. As Swami Vivekananda said, the Satya Yuga was reinstituted with the birth of Sri Ramakrishna. We don't see that, but that's because we don't know how to look. That's already happened. As I said, time, history will unfold that, will reveal it in time, what has already happened. But that's what is destroying the old, because the old has outlived its usefulness. The old institutions that were built on an old way of looking at people, looking on people as sinners, looking on people as weak, looking on people as inadequate, looking on people as selfish, looking on people as inherently selfish. Modern evolutionary biologists have looked for a selfish gene, trying to find a gene which produces selfishness. And if that could be done, that would prove that people are basically selfish by nature. No, you're not even defined by your genes. You are the divine being itself, beyond genetics. And so Swami Vivekananda wanted us, he said, he wanted the sappers and miners of religion. He needed the sappers and miners of religion. That's us, you and me, in our own seemingly inadequate way, doing what little we can do. What did he mean by it's a time that I want the sappers and miners of the new religion? The sappers and miners are those who first go into new virgin territory, to claim it and to begin to work it. And so he wanted sappers and miners, that is, those who are the forefront, those who are the pioneers in the army. Not everyone responds well to that analogy, as I realize, but let me just use it and you know what I mean. I'm not speaking of in any terms aggressive or military, but in the army of religion. It's the sappers and miners that are wanted to go forward. That is, to make a new way for the new civilization, to experiment with new things. And you are already doing that. All of us are doing that. All of us who are participating in these ideas are doing that already. We're reading about these ideas, listening to the ideas, trying to practice in the best way we can. We are making the new way forward, all of us. We are the sappers and miners already. In our own ways, we're experimenting with new things, with new ideas, trying to turn our lives around, trying to turn our lives in a new direction. By doing that, just as the child learning how to walk, by stumbling and falling, stumbling and falling, stumbling and falling, stumbling and falling, month after month after month, it gradually learns to walk. Sister Nivedita said that it took 1,500 years in Christianity to produce a Saint Teresa of Avila. 1,200 or 1,300 years, I forget what year, maybe 1,400 years, to produce the great Catherines of Italy, Saint Catherine of Genoa and Saint Catherine of Siena. Yes, there were saints produced all along the way, but it took a long time before society came to its full flowering. How long did it take in the Vedic age before the flowering of the Upanishadic age came? So it takes time for these ideas to work into society and to work their way into the institutions of society, and for there to be a clear path that when a young person comes along, they see before them a clear path. This is a path made for me that many have walked before me. Now I can walk it easily. When you first go into virgin territory, there are no paths, there are no roads. And so the sappers and miners go in and clear a way for others to follow. So that's what we're doing. So what we need to do in our own lives and in our own way, no matter how humble it might seem, our own way, it's not humble at all. It's extremely important for the future of humanity to try to internalize the principles of Vedanta, the principles that Sri Ramakrishna Swamiji, Holy Mother, taught, to try to internalize those the best that we can. It's good for you, it's good for us, and it will show the way to the future. It will point the way to the future. The pioneers always have the toughest job because they're going into new territory. But that's the only way that a smooth path can be made for later generations. So internalize these principles the best that you can and then learn how to express them. Learn how to express them in your daily life. That's the most important way. Learn how to express them in your daily life, in your daily actions. And then if you have some means of creative expression, whether it's in the arts or in literature or in the dramatic arts or painting, writing, whatever, poetry, whatever, then learn to express these ideas in new forms in that way also. But most importantly, bring the principles into your life. Experiment with them, learn how to live them, and then learn how to express them. First through your actions, and then if you have a creative outlet, through your creativity as well. So, to conclude, this is a time, the new year, for looking to the past and seeing what we can learn from it. But just in a general way, not by getting picky and looking for all of the bad things so that we can dwell on all of the bad things. No, just scan over the past and see what in essence I need to learn. One of the great things about time is that time gradually paints over the past so that the details are gone. And the remarkable thing about memory is that we tend to remember the past in good terms. Yes, if we've had traumatic experiences, that doesn't become good. It remains a bad memory. But most of the past is painted over in brighter colors than we actually experienced it. And that's a good thing because it gives us a firm foundation for moving forward. So let us look at the past and see what we can learn from it briefly. And then let us learn to look not to the future, but to the realized present. That is, the future, when it comes, it will be experienced in the present. So let us look to the potential within the present, dwell on that, and try to manifest that. So I've gone over time, so I won't ask for questions today. So let me give announcements and then a closing prayer. First, again, Happy New Year to everyone. And now for announcements. We begin now with this Sunday service, the new season of our classes and lectures, which we suspended between Christmas and New Year's. So on Tuesday, we'll restart the Bhagavad Gita class where we left off before Christmas at 7:30 in the evening. And on Thursday morning at 11 o'clock, we will continue the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna class. And next Sunday, the 10th of January, we will celebrate the birth of Swami Vivekananda. Now, just as with Holy Mother, we celebrated her birth on the 1st of January, even though her solar calendar birth date is December 22nd, and her lunar calendar, according to the Indian calendar, which follows the cycles of the moon, her birthday this year falls on the 5th of January, that is on Tuesday. But we celebrated it on the 1st so that it would be on a day when people are free from work. And so Swami Vivekananda's solar calendar birthday is on the 12th of January. But this year, his birthday, I forget the exact date on the lunar calendar, but I think it's the beginning of February, near the beginning of February. But we'll be celebrating it on the 10th of January, next Sunday, close to his solar calendar birth, that is the 12th of January, which was declared by the Prime Minister of India many years ago, Rajiv Gandhi, as All India Youth Day. So we will observe his birthday on the Sunday closest to the 12th. That is next Sunday. It will be with worship. It'll be a short worship because I can't yet sit long on the floor because of the injury to my knee. So we'll have a puja. It will be live streamed. It won't be in person. People will not be attending here, except for the 4 or 5 people who are helping with the puja itself. But you can watch it live streamed. And so that will start at 11 o'clock, and everything, including the arati, will be over before 12 o'clock. So 11, probably until 11:50. So with that, I will close and give a closing chant. Om Madhu Om Madhuvatartayate Madhuksharanti Sindhavaha Madhvirna Santoshadhihi Madhunaktamutoshasi Madhumatparthiva Gumrajaha Madhudyorastu Pita Madhumandho Vanaspatir Madhumagumastu Suryaha Madhvirgavo Bhavantunaha Om Madhu Om Madhu Om Madhu. For us who seek the truth and for all living beings, may the winds blow sweetly, may the rivers flow sweetly, may the herbs yield us sweetness. Sweet be the night and the break of day. Sweet be the very dust of the earth. May the heavens pour down sweetness upon us. May the trees, lords of the forest, bear us sweetness. May the sun shed its sweetness upon us. May the directions pour forth sweetness. Om, sweetness, sweetness, sweetness.